Welcome, everybody, to the Xavier Basketball Weekly Show on the Really True Sports Network. I'm your host for the Xavier Basketball Weekly Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, Xavier broadcasting legend, Andy MaCwilliams. How you doing, Andy Mac?
I'm doing well. I'll be doing much better if Xavier can salt away a win over the Georgetown Hoyas tomorrow night at Cintas. We'll see what we will see.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say the way this season is going right now at 12-6 and sitting in 10th in the Big East, this is a game that Xavier has to win.
Wait a minute. I mean, things are not good, Mike. They're not. They're not what I conceived when the season started. But they are not in 10th place. I mean, it's not far away, but they are statistically tied for 8th with DePaul at 1-4, and the St. John's Red Storm. They're in the basement.
Yeah, they're
1-5. It's a
Yeah.
slight distinction, but it is a distinction.
Well, any of
And
those
how
places.
about for a scenario? I'm the ultimate optimist, but Butler started the year like a house of fire. They were 15-1 a week ago. They were rated number 5 in the country, number 3 in the NAT. Everybody loved them. They've lost 2 in a row in the league, and they play at Villanova tonight. So let's say Butler, realistically, Villanova's lost 1 game in 7 years at the Pavilion in New Big East play. So what if Villanova pulls the mega upset knot and beats Butler in Philadelphia tonight? Butler goes to 3-3. Xavier beats Georgetown tomorrow. They're
2-4.
2-4. They're a game back. They're a game back of Butler. This league is crazy. It's competitive. It's unpredictable. And the good thing about the Big East is that at least 6. It's guaranteed there are going to be 6 NCAA bids for the Big East, maybe even 7. So those who are bailing on Xavier, and this is the end of the world, and Travis Steele's going to go to the NIT for a second year, that's a lot of BS. This thing's going to work out fine.
I hope you're right, and I think you're right too, because this just comes down to not being able to shoot the ball real well right now, which can be fixed. My concern is this. I think the defense has dropped off as the offense has struggled a little bit. So on the offensive end, Quentin Gooden, last game 0 for 8, Bryce Moore 0 for 3, Kiki Tandy 1 for 8. Is this a product of just missing good shots, or is it a product of getting the ball in a good position to shoot the ball?
I think a lot of it is shot selection. This is not, and we knew from the get-go this was not going to be a great perimeter shooting Xavier team. And you've got to minimize your losses there. You can't get into firefights from three-point range like when they played last at Marquette. You're not going to win a firefight with Marquette from outside the arc. You're not going to win a firefight with Creighton. You're not going to win a firefight with Villanova, and you have to adjust. You have to, have great discretion in your three-point tries, and you also have to ratchet up three-point defense and make the good shooting teams inefficient from 3. You have to put the 3 in the proper perspective. This Xavier team they're going to win with grinded-out defense. They're going to win with half-court offense. They're going to win with a big plus on boards and lower turnovers. I mean, the formula is there. They proved it last year. They had a strong finish and proved it, 2 years ago when they had a sort of a slow start. The plate is there. I mean, it's a lot easier, a lot prettier to put a lot of threes, but, until next year's recruiting class shows up, they're not going to be able to just flat out outshoot and outscore people. But they can win with tough, tight defenses they proved earlier in the year, and they got to win the board battles. They've been out-rebounded, which is unusual for Xavier, in 4 of their Big East losses, that's off the charts. That doesn't happen with Xavier basketball.
Yeah, and that's a killer. And you've got Georgetown coming to the Cintas Center tomorrow night. They're 12-7. Played Marquette tough, lost to them at 84-80 their last game out. What's your take on Georgetown? I know they got a big 7-footer that can cause some problems, but when you look at Georgetown, what's the first thing that you think is the key to beating them?
Well, the first thing I see is the key to beating them is they're playing on the road. They're 0-3 in Big East road games, average margin of defeat 15. So something's going on, and what is going on is they have a very short bench. They basically play 6 guys. They've got a 6'11" freshman plays a little bit, but only when Yurtseven, the big Turk, the 7-footer, gets tired or gets in early foul trouble. And they want to play up-tempo, and they score 8 points a game on average, but they lost 4 bodies in December. There was all that stuff going on off campus. They lost 4 really good players. And give them credit. I think they're 8-4 since those 4 players have departed. And one of them was the freshman of the year in the Big East last year, the point guard, James Akinjo, and another one was an all-freshman 6'8" kid who was, I thought, their best player overall, Josh LeBlanc. Those guys are out of school. They're going to transfer. I don't know if they were kicked out of school. There was a conduct problem. Anyway, Patrick Young's been doing it with a short bench, and they haven't been starting well on the road. I think if Xavier grinds them and sets the tempo, they're going to walk in.
Yeah, you look at them, MaCwilliams has played pretty well this year, averaging 16 points a game. You got Pickett, who's reached double-double in points in 4 of his last 5 games. And I think with Pickett is a big one for Georgetown when it comes to winning the rebounding battle against Xavier.
Yeah, he's long. Actually, his freshman year, he and his fellow freshman buddy, Javon Blair, played really well here against X 2 years ago. Now, they both had 20-point games, and you're right, Pickett is long, but he doesn't like the contact. You got to put a body on him. And offensively, I mean, he's going to throw it into the post and then pop out of the wing. He loves to shoot that wing 3, and Xavier knows it. They've played him before, so he could be a factor if you give him the room. And MaCwilliams is an interesting player, like poor man's Pete Maravich with the floppy hair and the floppy socks, and he's a great little scorer, but he's a volume shooter, 15 shots, and he's going to put it up indiscriminately, but he's a pretty bad point shooter, and again, you got to put a body on him, mark, and he could do damage, but I think he and Yurtseven are going to have to score 20 plus if they're going to win this game here in Cincinnati.
All right, so what's the overall feeling of this team right now? Because everybody thought this team would be better than 12-6 at this point. And I think with Travis Steele, he's the perfect guy to get through this, and he showed it last year in his first season when things were going a lot worse than this at this point of the season. So what is kind of the mental attitude of this team going into the Georgetown game?
Well, it's hard to read. I think Travis is still very optimistic, and he wants his players to play with no pressure, to play free, have fun, be competitive, be coachable, stay animated on the sideline, and be involved. And I think that this team is still connected. The reality is they're 1-4. The other part of the reality picture is there's still 13 games left in the Big East, and I think it's going to take nine wins to make the NCAA. That's the goal, to make the tournament. That's still very much in range, but they're going to have to return to being positive in the rebounding and to regain their mojo defensively, and to put the three-point shot sort of on the back burner. I mean, in today's game, you got to shoot the three when it's open after a post touch, after a ball reversal. But a quick three, in Travis' mind, is just like a turnover. I mean, the rest of the team can't anticipate it, and it leads to transition opportunities. And Georgetown thrives on that. They're a quick shooting team that really does their best work in a scramble court situation. And Xavier's got to make it.
Yeah, and these next 4 games for Xavier, you're hosting Georgetown, but at Creighton, which is one of the toughest places in the country to win at. They will then host Marquette, which is always a good team, and then you go to Seton Hall. And Seton Hall, to me right now, if I had to pick teams in the Final Four, that's a team that I would have to consider. I mean, they're rolling with a guy who is playing as good as anybody in the country.
Yeah, Miles Powell is obviously a great player, and they've been a good second-half team. And they have experience, they have depth, and they're still waiting for the big 6'11" European Sandro Mukalishvili, who had a good sophomore year last year. He's been out with a fractured hand, and I don't know when he's supposed to be back, but it was a 2-month injury. He might show up just in time for that Xavier game at the Rock in Newark. That would be Xavier's back to have that big dude show up. Yeah, I agree. I mean, they change defenses. They have that Kevin Willard toughness. They're sort of a junkyard bite in the ankle team. They've got the experienced point guard in Quincy McKnight and the senior magic guy, 25 points a game in Miles Powell. So they're very good, but they're 6-0 right now. They're not going to go 18-0. They're going to lose some ball games.
Yeah. And Miles Powell really impressed me against St. John's because St. John's really played well about the first 30 minutes of that game, and then he took over and scored like 15 points over the next 7 or 8 minutes. And that's what makes me think there's such a huge threat come March, just like Xavier. If Xavier's in the tournament, Najee Marshall is a guy that can put you on your back and carry you too, and I think Miles Powell's the same way.
It's sort of amazing how balanced this league is. So that game at Madison Square Garden, Seton Hall and St. John's, that's sort of like a Texas death match anyway. They hate each other. They rally at the Gardens. They sold the place out for a regular season game in January. And St. John's played really, really well. And I think they might have won the ball game, but LJ Figueroa fouled out with about 2 minutes to go. And, he and Mostafa Heron are the big go-to guys. So that was a super ball game. And here's St. John's, they're 1-5, and Seton Hall 6-0. And St. John's came very close to pulling the upset.
All right, so I'm going to veer off path, and I'm going to go back to 1990 because Xavier Georgetown, 1990, second round at the Hoosier Dome, is still my favorite Xavier game of all time. What do you remember about that game? It was the Mutombo and Mourning against Hill and Strong.
Georgetown was the beast of the East. John Thompson, the coach. They played that, smash mouth, Big East style basketball, and Xavier just Derek Strong and Tyrone Hill were the Muskies' twin towers. They outplayed Mourning and Mutombo. And then Aaron Williams came on he was a freshman, a big freshman out of Chicago. Tyrone fouled out with about 4 minutes to play in that game after Jamal Walker gave him a really awkward between-the-legs pass as Tyrone sashayed down the lane. Foul number 5. I thought it was all over. Aaron came in, played well, scored the winner on a stick pack, and Xavier won the ball game. And they had a freshman ex-dip by the name of Jamie Gladden who had a great game. Michael Davenport. That was a match. That was at the Hoosier Dome, the RCA Dome, whatever they called it back there. 38,000 sold out. Georgetown was favored by 12 or 14, and actually, Georgetown and John Thompson dissed Byron Larkin. They didn't pick him to go to the Olympics in Seoul, South Korea in 1988, and we all remembered that. And that was a point of contention. Byron had graduated. He didn't play in that game in 1990, but we all remembered what JT wanted is tough Big East guards. So Xavier put it to those tough Big East guards in the second round of the NCAA that year. And they made their first Sweet 16 ever in 1990 and came very close to beating Texas down in Dallas in a wild game at that arena in Dallas.
Yeah, and the thing I remember is the Russians stuck it to us, too, in 1988 because John Thompson forgot to take any guards that could shoot the ball.
Yeah, he loved his tough Big East guards who go nose to nose. But in the Olympics in '88, that team, the American team, won a bronze medal, if you might remember. And the only really good shooter they had was a guy by the name of Hersey Hawkins from Bradley who sprained his ankle before the medal round.
Yeah. They had Dan Marley, too, I think, on that team.
Perfectly. Byron would have fit. They won a gold medal if Byron Larkin goes to the Olympics that year. They had no shooters.
Well, yeah, they had one. They had Thunder Dan Marley. You remember Dan Marley?
Yeah.
He was on that team. But that was the
but he was a wing. He wasn't a guard.
Yeah, I know. Their guards. Who were the guards on that team?
I don't remember. There were a couple of Big East guys, that's for sure. They were they couldn't shoot the rock.
No, they could not shoot the rock, and the problem was they were big physical guards, but they were playing against grown men that were guards, guys like Marciulionis, Kurtinitis, Volkov, who were all really good players. And I think Kurtinitis hit him for like 28 points, so those great defensive guards didn't do much. Here we go.
Yeah,
the guards, Bimbo Coles, Mitch Richmond, Stacy Augman, who I remembered him as being a forward. Yeah, they had no shooters on the team. Dan Marley is the only guy that could shoot the ball at all.
Well, those are names out of the past. Obviously, Augman could, he could barely make a layup. He was definitely an enforcer. He went on to play in the NBA. He was a good player. Bimbo Cole, that's the name out of the past. Whoa.
Yeah, wasn't he Virginia Tech?
Yep, he was a Virginia Tech guy. Yep.
Yeah, the starting lineup was David Robinson, Dan Marley, Charles Smith, J.R. Reed, and Willie Anderson.
Holy Toledo! They're playing with the 3-point line, the Olympic, international line, and the team had nobody you could take advantage of except for Hersey Hawkins.
Yeah, there was nobody, and then he was hurt, so there was nothing. I mean, Mitch Richmond was a really good guard, but he wasn't a pure shooter.
No, he was a big-chested, hard drive. He had a great NBA career, and he was a mediocre assistant under Chris Mullen at St. John's last year.
How about this one? In that semifinal game, Danny Manning played a total of 8 minutes.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Idea what how the coached. They didn't have an overwhelming talent advantage. And 7 foot who could knock your socks off, they were worthless.
Yeah. And the thing is this, though. I mean, look at all the talent he had and came up short all but that 1 year. I mean, he got coached.
That opened the door for the Dream Team. 1992, the first year they were all NBA except for Christian Laettner. And the rest is history. Nike made millions of dollars. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, all those guys made all those memories by beating up all those inferior international teams. Everybody made a lot of money off of the Dream Team.
Yeah, and we won, and that's all that's important, Andy.
That's right. Except, that bronze medal was a total disaster. It was like, what was the year 72 when the Russians replayed the last 15 seconds.
27 times until they got it right.
They got the result they wanted. Yeah. So.
Yeah. They played Australia to win the silver, though, or to win the bronze. And I think Australia had, what was his name? The guy that Andrew Gaze.
Andrew Gaze, who spent 1 year at Seton Hall. PJ Carlissimo brought him over. I think he lived in PJ's basement. And
hey, he got PJ to a national championship game.
Yeah, they went to the national championship game and lost to Michigan.
Yeah, at least Gaze didn't almost choke PJ to death. So
that's true. Gaze about 32 years old when he was a senior, so-called senior at Seton Hall that year. He was old.
I still wish they'd have beat Michigan, though. I was still mad because Xavier had to play Michigan in the first round that year.
Oh, should have beat him up by 5
I know.
at the Omni in Atlanta. Xavier's up by 5, and that Glenn Rice guy hit 3 corkscrew threes with Stan Kimbrough and Jamal Walker hanging every orifice. I mean, that was unbelievable.
Why was Glenn Rice not on the 1988 team?
I have no idea. That guy could shoot the rock. He was, he was an unreal shooter.
Yeah, he was one of those guys. He was open inside a half court.
The more you contested the shot, the better he liked it. I mean, he shot at all angles, not facing the basket, whatever. And not always, but it frequently went in.
Yeah. All right, Andy. So Xavier wins tomorrow night?
I don't own my own house anymore, so I really do. I think that the Muskies, it's a pressure game, a high leverage game. They've got the home court. Georgetown has showed a lot of vulnerability on the road. They have Yurtseven is a strong player, but and so is McClung, and they've got some other pieces. But I think Xavier, if they start quickly and box out on the boards, I think they win. easily.
Yeah, I think they win the game just because of numbers of quality players. I just think they can wear them out. I would love to see Kiki Tandy start to knock down some threes. I think that would be a big key to the rest of the season if he can come in and do that, or Bryce Moore.
Well, he's matched up with McClung. I don't think McClung plays a whole lot of defense, so there's going to be some Kiki's going to have some space out there to knock down a few threes.
All right, Andy, you want to tell everybody where they can follow you on Twitter?
Yeah, it's at MM_Andy Mac. At MM_Andy Mac, all lowercase.
All right, Andy, thanks a lot. And we will be back. When do you want to do this again? We want to do one. You want to do one after the game Thursday or Friday?
You name it. We can do it Friday.
All right, let's go Friday at 4 o'clock then.
All right. See you at Sinfa.
All right, I will see you tomorrow night, Andy. Hopefully they sit us next to each other again.
All right, bye.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Make sure you check us out Friday at 4 o'clock on the Xavier Musketeer Weekly Basketball Show. So, for now, for Andy MaCwilliams, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.